Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to do a lot of local sports. We'll talk about the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans. We're also going to talk a little about what's happening on the college sports scene. As always, got a great panel for you. Returning for his second time on the panel, legendary sportscaster Ro Brown of WBOK Radio, sports director over there, and so much more. We'll ask Ro a little bit about what he's got going. And also former Saints Vice President Jim Miller, now of J.W. Miller Sports, his website. And gentlemen, thanks for coming down. Certainly appreciate you guys joining me here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Thank you, Eric. Good
Pleasure.
to see you again, man.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Good to see you guys. Ro, first of all, let's start with you. I know you got your hands in a lot of different things. Tell the folks a little bit about what's going on.
More like my fingers, not my hands. Just the tips of my fingers. Well, I work at the University of New Orleans in marketing and PR, working in the athletic department and, the regular school, as people like to call it. As you mentioned, I do some things at WBOK and also WHNO, do a prep recruiting insider show with Renee Nato from August to February. Prep football, which has always been my favorite. We do the radio show there at WGSO with Kenny Trahan. Original Prep Football Report, writing a little blog at sportsnola.com and just trying to, hang on.
Right.
We all can't be like Jim Miller.
Oh, well.
Now, your radio show on Fridays is what time?
Sport of Facts, it's Fridays, 12 noon, hour-long show, and it's fun to do. And we just, talk about some things that are going on and talk about some things that people aren't talking about.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jim Miller, well, of course, you had time with the Saints, but we'll talk a little bit about that. But tell the folks a little bit about what you're doing now. You got a great website. Tell the folks a little bit about it.
Well, thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure, number one, to be in the standing here and sitting here with one of the legends of New Orleans sports, my old friend Ro. And that's all I'm going to say nice about you tonight. Okay?
I understand. Right. I know.
No, but yeah, we've had I enjoyed a nice career in the NFL, 20 years in the NFL, 7 years at UNO as athletic director, and retired in 09 to quote write books. And I've written a couple, and it's much easier, I will tell you, to write a book than to sell a book.
Right.
But but just trying to keep sharp with my writing and in touch with the New Orleans sports scene with my website and having a lot of fun.
Right. So some of the titles of your books that you've written?
Well, the only one that's out is the one about UNO, and it's called Where the Water Kept Rising, and it got a good response. It was about the before, during, and after Katrina, which was an incredibly terrible time. Of course, for everybody, we all have our own stories, but for the university, it was a terrible time. It was really the start of the decline. And hopefully they're turning the corner now, and they're going to be back to where they should be.
We will definitely talk about UNO tonight. We'll talk about them coming back. Let's start off with the New Orleans Saints, as we always do. Remember, you can always join the program. 866-3200 is the phone number. This is a live show tonight here on WLAE-TV. Don't forget there will be a rebroadcast of this program tomorrow, 10 o'clock on WLAE-TV, and also on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. So if you can't tune in on Thursday, check us out on a Friday at 10 p.m. The Saints finally signed Jonathan Goodwin. And a lot of us kept saying, man, what are they waiting for? What are they waiting for? Why did they not sign it? We come to find out one of the reasons why they did not sign him earlier is because of compensatory picks. For the first time in probably a long time in recent history, the Saints are in line to get compensatory picks. They've lost more free agents than they've signed this season. And one of the reasons why they delayed that signing, most cases you delay the signing because you can spread that contract over 2 years. They only signed Goodwin to a one-year deal, but now it will not affect the Saints' compensatory picks going forward. Ro, how big of a signing is this for this team?
Oh, I like it. I mean, and he may not be the starter. Lilito may be the starter, but I think it's good to have him there. The Saints were at their best, of course, the Super Bowl year because they were so strong in the middle. because they were so strong with the center and the two guards. Drew Brees never had to retreat. He could always step up.
Yes.
You know, last year he didn't have that necessarily all the time, and it showed. But, you know, I think it's a very good signing. You don't have to teach him what's going on. He knows what's going on. He's a veteran. He's been around. He knows the offense and the whole works. And it's a good signing, especially for a one-year situation. Yes. There's no doubt about it.
1 year, under
$1 million? It's a
million?
no-brainer to me. Yeah. You know, I think it was about $1 million.
Yeah, it was $955,000, what I understand.
It's about $1 million.
And
I'm sure they like that.
Chump change.
Oh yeah,
Chump change.
Oh, for a guy like him,
Absolutely.
for sure. And he never sold his house, so he's got a place.
Really?
No, he tweeted that today. He did not sell his house, so he's got a place to move into. So it's not like he's house hunting.
Oh, it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
He must have known something.
Come on, he had to know something, huh?
That's a good thing.
Right.
He must have known
Right.
something. They have all this. Is this new? Or was
What's
this
that?
when you were around, this compensatory?
Oh,
situation?
they had it to an extent. It was just starting,
Yeah.
but we really never got into it that much.
Yeah.
Never qualified.
Jim, what's your thoughts on Jonathan Good? What he brings to the table? And is this a good signing?
Well, it's a good signing, Eric. But I still have a big question mark over the offensive line. I love everything they did in the draft. I love everything they've done so far. Jarius Byrd, I think, is a terrific signing, and Rowe reminds me that he's not on the field yet, but he will be, and that's a great signing. You can have 22 good players and never win a game. You've got to have playmakers in the NFL, and Jarius Byrd's a playmaker. Cooks is a playmaker. You know, they've got guys that they need weapons, and on both sides of the ball. Those are great picks, but I think if they have an Achilles heel, it's still the offensive line.
I'd have to agree with you on that. I mean, I think, you know, I went to the Southern Arkansas A&M game. You know, shows how old I am. It's Arkansas Pine Bluff. Now they called it A&M, you know, back in the days. But I went to that game specifically to see Teron Armstead 2 years ago. Because I'd heard about it. You know, I went there to watch him, and I was really impressed with it. I still think that he's going to be a Pro Bowl player. Maybe not this year yet, but, you know, he played pretty well on the left flank. I mean, they must have thought something about him to just yank a guy who they thought wasn't playing well and put him out there for the first time, protecting Drew Brees' backside. But I agree with Jim. That's the Achilles heel right now. It looks like
Depth, especially. Depth, especially.
Oh, yeah,
that's
sure.
the worst part because
Exactly.
you know you can if those five guys can stay healthy all year. God bless us, every one. But that's not the way it is in the NFL.
It doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen.
Right.
And I don't know if they've got the backups. They're thin. They're awfully thin. So.
They are, and they were thin going into the OTAs with not a lot of guys with a lot of experience behind what they have right now. As I mentioned
Which
last
makes
week,
a good one signing even better. So you're talking about the depth.
Agreed.
Because Lolito can,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yes.
if they
Now
have
he can
to,
swing
he
between
can move.
center and guard if
Yeah.
necessary, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the situation with Teron Armstead, as I mentioned last week, film being the great equalizer in the NFL, you've had a whole offseason now for defensive coordinators to kind of take a look at Teron Armstead. What is his weaknesses? What is his strengths? What is his tendencies? So now they'll come after that. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. It doesn't look like they're going to add any more veteran depth, but they got some young guys that ultimately have got to prove they can play in the NFL. But I agree with both you guys. This is a situation where there's not a tremendous amount of depth, and let's face it, offensive line didn't really play well in the first part of the season last year.
No.
Right.
True.
You know, Armstead's a great example of one thing the Saints do really well, and that's the lower school. I say lower schools, the schools that aren't the Division I or Division I BCS schools, but they do a great job at looking for people with the size, with the attitude, with the smarts, and with the character. And I mean, you can go right down the lineup the last 10 years to find out.
The Bloomsburg
Oh, absolutely. The Bloomsburg States and the places, Hofstra. You know, I mean,
Jermon Bushrod, Towson.
absolutely. And you can go right down the line, and they do a tremendous job. And there may be a guy in training camp right now that we don't know about. So
Exactly.
it could be the next Colston or Bushrod or Jari Evans. So you know, the Saints know what they're doing. Believe me.
Who was paying attention to Colson, you know, in OTAs?
Nobody was.
In minicamp?
6 rounds worth of nobody, you know.
At that time, you know, who was paying attention to him?
Agreed. And they may have a couple of those guys undrafted, you know, like a Pierre Thomas that we've seen in the past. I mean, you know, Matt Armstrong was the Remington winner for Division II.
Right.
He again comes from Grand Valley State. He may be a guy that could come in and add just to give you some quality depth. Also, Brandon Coleman. We were talking a little bit about him before the show.
Rutgers.
So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on
Great
Brandon
big
Coleman.
receiver. Curtis Johnson's first game, I remember we evacuated one of those hurricanes and we came back and went to the game really because they had air conditioning in the dome, you know? No, we wanted to see the first game anyway because CJ's a good friend of mine. And I was glad he got the job. So we're watching Rutgers and we see this huge guy, this receiver who's about 6'6", and he's, running all over the place. We're going, who is that? And I forgot about him, to tell you the truth. I was surprised he wasn't drafted, When I saw the Saints signed him as a free agent, I just assumed he would be drafted by someone.
Sure.
So, I think that, he could be a steal for him. He's going to probably have some problems in the beginning, but that could be one of those people.
Yeah,
right,
a lot of teams had him as a fourth. A lot of I'll say teams. A lot of those that followed the draft thought that he'd be around a fourth-round pick.
Yeah.
And again, they were able to get him in undrafted free agency. And a lot is that because they give a guy a legitimate shot to make the team. That's their reputation now. Let's talk about Jarvis Byrd. Again, hurt his back in the Pro Bowl, from what we understand. Aggravated the injury during weightlifting. Again, when you look at overall, he played 14 games as a rookie. In his second, third, and fourth years, he played all 16 games. Last year, he had only played 11 games because he had plantar fasciitis, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But he had him in both feet. So again, he was that, and a contract year probably maybe limited him till he was 100% healthy. It's a disc in a back. And Raul, I'll start with you first. Your thoughts on this injury, and the Saints are really downplaying this. I'm saying it's a back injury, and I think you got to worry about a back injury.
That's my thought. Okay, it's something that you felt you needed to take care of, that you had time to take care of. That's the kind of thing when you're talking about taking a pimple or something, a mole off of an arm. And to me, that's my answer. It's a back.
Yeah,
it's a back.
I'm the proud owner.
It could be anything. Okay,
I'm the proud owner of a ruptured L4 myself, and so I was. Young Miller could run. Young Miller ran marathons. You may not believe that, but Young Miller ran marathons.
I did know that.
But until L4 ruptured, and then all of a sudden I took a month off, or I took a year off. Actually, literally, I took a year off from any strenuous exercise, and I gained 40 pounds. So that ain't nothing to sniff at, as Rose says. But you've got to think, once again, the Saints know what they're doing. They've got the best medical care. There's so many innovations in medical care and health care with things like backs that we never dreamed of, 20 years ago. So keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, he may be fine.
Right.
By training camp, as they say.
That's the hope.
He may be, but
right.
It's a back.
Yeah.
I mean, anything could happen.
Yeah, but they need this guy. They need this guy because he's a playmaker.
He was a signing.
You've got to have playmakers.
Yes.
Playmakers make plays.
He was a serious signing.
Absolutely.
Well,
No
the
doubt
signing. The signing for the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he will allow the Saints to play that bump and run defense that they want to play, because you can have literally a safety over the top that has great range and has the ability to turn the ball over, which is something this team has lacked.
Right, exactly. And Vaccaro is going to get better.
Oh yeah.
He's going to be he's the real deal. There's no question.
Yeah.
I mean, for a kid to come in and do what he did last year, and then unfortunately got hurt, but he's going to be ready, and I'm excited to see him back on the field.
Yeah, I think everybody is.
Yeah.
Rose, start you first. Your thoughts on the draft overall? How do you think they did? Again, a lot of people think it's a home run with the first pick, Brandon Cooks.
I do.
After that, some folks are maybe saying this is a wait-and-see draft. What are your thoughts?
I like the draft. I thought they had a good draft. I like Brandon Cooks, of course, Biletnikoff winner. A lot of people are thinking of him as a receiver. I think he's going to be Darren Sproles.
Me too.
I do. I think he's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to be out. He'll return some punts and kicks when he has to, unless they find someone else to do it. I don't think he's just going to be a receiver like some people think. Sean Payton's going to move him all over. I'm sure that he thought long and hard about how he was going to use this young man and the many ways in which he was going to use this guy. And he is capable of doing all those things I'm sure Sean Payton wants to do with him. Stanley it's hard to say Jean-Baptiste. Jean-Baptiste.
We can call him Jean-Baptiste.
I'm going to call him Jean-Baptiste.
Absolutely.
It's hard to say that. Yeah, okay. Stanley Jean-Baptiste.
You'll get used to it.
from Nebraska. Big corner, He's big, but he didn't look that physical to me when I saw him in college, which isn't bad, but people are thinking that
they say his forte is bump and run. They say he's going to be able to get in, but you don't feel he was physical?
He didn't look. I didn't get overly physical from him, but Jim will appreciate this. I mean, I'm thinking Mel Blount when you think physical corner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So maybe maybe it's not fair, but that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
But
Different era back then, though, too.
exactly.
Oh yeah. Real different era. That was the era when a player, before I got in the NFL, I was covering the Baltimore Colts for the Baltimore Sun, and I remember going in the locker room before a game or the day before a game and watching one of the linebackers take the tape roll. There used to be, they used to put the tapes on a big spool.
Yes.
And he took the spool and rammed his hand through it, and he taped it up. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, hey, watch the game. And so a guy came across the middle of the field, and this guy was a club, and he boom. Well, they can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
They can't do that anymore. But the old days have some great stories.
Right. Jim, what are your thoughts about the draft? How do you think they fared? I mean, again, as I mentioned, a lot of people think that the back end of the draft was one of those wait-and-see drafts. What do you think as you broke it down?
I agree with Roe. I think the first rounder is a playmaker. Anytime you can trade up to make, and I predicted on my website on the day before the draft, by golly, that they would trade up for a playmaker, maybe Brandon Cooks. That's if you throw enough stuff against the wall on a website, you're bound to get one right. But in all seriousness,
you hit it.
This guy is a Sproles. He can do everything Sproles can do, but he's faster than Sproles. He can get downfield, and that's what Drew Brees needs. Jean Baptiste, he's going to compete in a very competitive position right now. We had a lot of injuries last year, but from everything I read, all the corners are healthy. Champ Bailey will add a lot just being the locker room presence.
Yes.
Because sometimes you bring a guy in like that, not necessarily to let him run 50 snaps a game, but for him to be a great influence. And he's a professional. He's seen it all.
Right.
He's had honors. And he's going to be a great influence. The other guys down the road, again, they have the P's and the Q's. They've apparently good character guys. They've done well in college, and the Saints see something in them, and I have confidence in them.
Right.
Keenan Lewis was very solid on the corner last year.
Yes.
I thought, and Patrick Robinson coming back from his injury,
Contract
some people
year.
have been, and some people have questioned him, but I mean, when he's played, he's been pretty good. So there's some depth there on the corner.
Right. Well, situational depth when you start looking at the back end of the draft at the very least, and then of course, as I've mentioned on this program on the radio show, you lost Harper, you lost Jenkins, you lost Herring. You needed to upgrade that special teams, and nothing better than to get some young guys out of college that can run to be able to get on that special teams.
Sunseri for me.
Yes.
I think that was pretty good. Okay, you know he's going to be a special teams player.
Yes.
You know that's what he's going to be. But also, I have the feeling that he can play defense.
Well, he's a coach on the field. He's a coach on the field.
He can play defense as well.
That's his heritage.
Exactly.
And he's a coach on the field, smart guy.
Yeah, his dad's a coach and was a good player at Pitt as a linebacker, and he'd been around the game a long time. But I think that not only will he help special teams, I mean, he's going to make the team, I think, because of special teams, but he can also play, every down on defense if you need him to.
Right. Jim, I'll start with you. Jimmy Graham grievance hearing is June 17th and the 18th. The big question that I've asked all along is, do you allow Penn professor Stephen Burbank, who you've already had a history with if you're the Saints, to be able to make this decision on the future of his salary? He ruled in favor of Drew Brees in the free agent, in the tag when he was when he got the tag from the Saints, the franchise tag. He ruled in favor of Roger Goodell in the Bountygate situation, so now you're in a situation with the Saints. You're going before the same arbitrator. You haven't done really well if you're wearing the black and gold. What do you think happens here? Do you think they go to this grievance hearing? Do you think they get a deal done before? Is this something that ultimately Stephen Burbank decides on whether he's a wide receiver or a tight end?
Well, it depends on how much leverage the Saints think they have, if they have any. Because, this is a situation where a tight end is a tight end is a tight end, most of us think. And I think Jimmy Graham should think that, just depending on looking at the way he was covered last year. Because if you look at any team defensively, they put their best corner on the wideout receiver, but the Patriots did it the opposite way. They put their best corner on Jimmy Graham because he was the best receiver. How many balls did he catch that game? I don't think he caught many, if any. And so and Seattle did that to an extent. So I think if I'm Jimmy Graham, I'm going to say, hey, I'm a tight end. I want to run it up against a linebacker. I want to try to let those linebackers catch me down the field or in the crossing patterns. The whole asterisk, or the big asterisk, the big question mark is this arbitrator going to actually count plays? Because the specific language in the contract, in the collective bargaining agreement, says that you will be categorized in the position at which you played more than 50% of the plays, or the most plays. So how is an arbitrator going to look at the coverages, going to look at it, is Graham split wide? Does that mean something? Despite all the coverages he's going to be facing, if he's close in, is he a tight end? If he's in the slot, is he a tight end or receiver? I think this arbitrator is going to have just a tremendous job, and one that I wouldn't want to do. But I would hope cooler heads would prevail, and both of them see the wisdom of a contract.
So Jimmy Graham, yeah, he wants to be a tight end on the field,
right? But he wants to be paid.
Well, get this number one corner away from me,
right?
Okay?
Exactly.
But he wants to be a tight end. He wants to be a wide receiver off the field.
Absolutely, that's the way I look at it, Ro.
But he did play on the wideout. I think it was almost 49.8% of the time. So if the arbitrator is counting plays, you're probably thinking that, more than likely he's in a situation where ultimately, is he a wide receiver or is he a tight end? We'll see. I don't think the Saints really want to put this in Burbank's hands. The question is, how close are they on a contract?
True, and nobody knows that. But I agree with you. A situation like this, it's very, very difficult to leave it up to somebody who doesn't breathe or live this game every day. Right. And an arbitrator. I've been in a lot of hearings, and they will come up with some rationale that out of the blue that you've never you can't believe they're basing their decision on something nobody ever thought of before.
Right.
So that's the risk they run.
Yes, the Saints are going to have training camp in West Virginia to start off this year. There's been some pushback by some people in the community. They're saying, "Hey, wait a minute, the taxpayers funded this training facility. It's a beautiful training facility. We expect to get some kind of feedback, some kind of bang for our buck in terms of tax dollars. When the Saints train here, people are going out to the training camp. They're leaving. In some cases, they're going to restaurants. They're buying things at the Winn-Dixie across the street. The money's staying in New Orleans. This time, the money, obviously, even from the hotel that the Saints stay in all the way down, all that money stays right here in New Orleans. That money now goes to West Virginia for the first part of the training camp. Jim, we'll start with you. What do you think about training camp in West Virginia? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And should the Saints train here in New Orleans simply because the taxpayers have foot the bill for that training facility?
Well, I was involved when we took the Saints to La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Right.
From Hammond.
From Hammond, yeah. But from out of the metro New Orleans area, we took it to La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I will never forget the Picayune. For the first week we were up there during a heat wave in Wisconsin, they had a scoreboard. It was La Crosse 103, New Orleans 94. I mean, we went through this for a week, and we went through all the slings and arrows. The fans were disappointed, but in the final analysis, the fans care about the end of the season, not the beginning of the season. Yeah. So my feeling, sure, I would love for them to stay here. Let the fans get excited, be able to go see them, really get fired up. But in the final analysis, it's how they perform once they get back.
Didn't Jim Finks say that we got to get out of this heat?
Oh yeah, well
that's why he went to La Crosse.
Yes, exactly.
Is this the same thing?
We didn't have an indoor facility.
But is this the same thing? I mean, is this why they're going? I never really heard.
Here's my question. It's hotter in August when they're going to be here on the back end of the training camp than it is in July. I mean, when you start really looking at it. And you got more of a chance of a hurricane, let's hope it never happens, in late August or early August than you have in July. I wondered, maybe I would have thought maybe the first part of the training camp here in New Orleans, and then maybe have a little respite by going to West Virginia. They're doing it the opposite.
Right.
Look, I got no problem with them getting away. If he feels he's got to take this team and sequester them, get them away from their families, get them away from the fans, that's fine.
And it's July 17th visit to August 24th.
Yeah, I suspect there's a financial inducement in there somewhere from the state of West Virginia. I don't know that for a fact.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
But I suspect for them to pull up stakes and go to West By God, Virginia?
West Virginia.
I mean, what's the inducement there other than?
Well, Sean Payton's girlfriend is from West Virginia.
Well, in that case,
may be an incentive.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Okay.
Hey,
I'm not touching that.
Hey, I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm
just throwing it out there. So, good thing, bad thing.
I guess it's bad. I guess it's good. I guess it's good. I mean, if it works, nobody cares. Okay, if they go out 13 in a row like they did in 2009, no one's going to remember. Right. Of course, they went to previous places, Vero Beach, and those sort of things in those days. I mean, the team didn't win a whole lot, but it doesn't bother me really. It really doesn't to me.
Jim?
They'll probably be close to the Redskins at Carlisle, Pennsylvania. They'll probably be close to the Steelers, Latrobe. They've always traditionally trained there. I mean, if they want to work with other teams, that's what we did in Wisconsin.
Right.
We had the Cheese League. We had the Chiefs and the Packers and the Vikings and the Jaguars first couple of years. We had a bunch of teams up there, and it was good for us. But I would much rather them stay here. Again, we don't know all the inducements, but keep them here.
Speaking of inducements, the city lost the Super Bowl 52, the opportunity to be able to host that game. Ro, I guess the first question is, what do you think happened? Was it the fact that it was a new stadium? From what we're hearing, it was the best presentation ever. From a monetary standpoint, New Orleans had the best inducements to be able to bring the Super Bowl here. It came down, from what we understand, again, they built it, and the NFL is going to come. That looks to be the new model here. What are your thoughts on the loss of this game for the city? And will we see another game in the Dome before the Saints leases up in 2025?
I spent a little time working with the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, so I know what Jay Cicero and those guys do, and I know that they are very, very good at what they do. I know that this is the best place to host a Super Bowl. I'm sure Jim has heard it. The NFL people won't tell you on camera, but when you turn off the camera, they will tell you if it's left up to us, we'd have it here every year, the people who have to put the game on. They've told me that time and time again. I was not surprised, however, that Minnesota got the Super Bowl because they're building a new place, and it just looks like that's what they're doing right now. If you can get the public to build you a stadium, we'll give you a Super Bowl. That looks like, and we've got some more new stadiums that we're behind.
That's right.
Unfortunately. It may not seem fair, may not seem right, but it looks like that's how they're doing it.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people that on the inside that have told me that they were just strictly outbid. The state of Louisiana has not come up with the money that Minnesota's come up with, the additional financial inducements. They were strictly outbid. Billy, I say Billy Ferranti, who works with Jay Cicero. Billy, Jay, those guys are the best. There's no question. But they're only as good as the tools they have. And also the hotel motel community has not really kept up with regard to rates, guaranteed rates. To regard to I think the properties are good and growing, but I think guaranteed rates that they can tell the NFL, okay, here's what we're going to charge. They don't really have to because they get so many conventions here anyway that I can understand that. I'm not throwing rocks at them, but other cities that aren't convention cities like Minneapolis, for example, Detroit, for example, they can do that. They can strong arm the hotels and tell them to cut rates just to get an event. So I think those two things. So
Jim, everything we've heard is that the financial package that New Orleans had was better than any of the other suitors. You've heard different. You've heard that the financial package from Minnesota was much better than what we had here in New Orleans.
That's what I've heard. Okay. Now, again, you can hear anything. People sometimes will tell you something that they like to show that they know more than anybody else. But that's what I've heard, that they've been that New Orleans has been outbid. And that's nothing that anybody here can
that kind of lends to the next question. We lost the opportunity to be able to host the not now the BCS championship, but the new college football championship. One of the reasons why, you look at Texas, they have a fund now that they have a state fund that they're using to use as inducements to be able to bring the big games to Texas. You look at Phoenix, which again outbid us. They have a fund. Is this the future for New Orleans, that we're going to have some type of a slush fund to be able to induce these big games back to the city? It's no longer the best walkables, the best venue.
But
we were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, we to an extent have the slush fund now, for lack of a better phrase. But we've always been able to keep up with it. The competition is getting so fierce, and the money is getting so big that I think other venues are stepping up in a big way. They're stepping up in a big way. And again, we can only do as much as we can do. I think the number one attraction, as Rose said, is that this is by and far and large away the best place to have a NCAA Final Four, the best place to have the BCS championship, the best place by far to have a Super Bowl, plus with our history, no question. And people understand that, but the finances come into it when, hey, we want new stadiums in the NFL, and that costs money, and they're rewarded for that.
We were ahead of the curve in the big event business, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, we were ahead of the curve. We were ahead of everyone else. Now, the other cities, I think, have gotten better. That's what Jim means by the competition is fierce. They've gotten better. They've got deep pockets. They perhaps have deeper pockets.
Yes.
And that's changed this a bit. And although we are the best place, we have the things that work. Evidently, this is a situation now where it's coming to, okay, so how much?
Right.
That's good, but how much? We want to come, but how much?
Right. Guys, will we see another Super Bowl in that building? The Mercedes-Benz Superdome. The Saints lease is up in 2025. My calculations, looking at cities that are going to probably build stadiums, probably 2023 might be the first year that we'll have a chance to bid on it. I doubt the NFL comes back to New Orleans with a Super Bowl unless there's a long-term agreement with the Saints. Do you see another Super Bowl in the Dome?
I see another one, but it may be a while.
I see another one, but it will be a time when they're totally renovating the Super Bowl or the Superdome to create more revenue enhancements for the Saints, something like that. You can't build a new NFL stadium every year, so at some point, they'll bring it back, but I don't know when.
Will we ever get to the point where the Saints are asking for a new stadium again?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now. I believe we will, and I said this on this show, and my radio show. There's a new model out there now, and it is a public-private partnership. The Saints have the best, hands down, the best lease situation in the NFL. When basically, Mr. Benson and the Saints organization, the Pelican organization, own the arena and own the dome. They get the proceeds from game day and also proceeds from non-game events. Champion Square as well. So I think anything that's going to happen going forward, if you look at the model that's happening now, where billion-dollar stadiums are being built, and we're in a situation where the public's putting up half the money and the owners are putting up half. I think there's got to be a new model here coming up if that happens, and it'll be interesting to see. Mr. Benson, and by 2025, Mr. Benson may not be around, okay? But whoever's going to take over leadership of that team, are they going to buy into the new model, or are they going to be spoiled by the best lease in the game right now, whether it's in the NBA or the NFL that they have now?
That's a very good point. My crystal ball is not working today. But that's a very good point. Somebody is going to get another Super Bowl here. Somebody is going to have to step up, but in a big way. Again, whether it's new inducements for the team, whether it's a new check for the NFL, whatever it is, it's going to have to be more than we were able to contribute this year, or propose.
And for the record, Shell is a new building. Inside, it is state of the art. I mean, we've done everything we can to retrofit that building to make it a modern stadium. Ro, any final thoughts before we go to break?
Well, it's amazing when you think about the number of domes which have been imploded.
Yes.
Built after that,
after
the Superdome, and the Superdome is still, looking good to me.
No, I think it's a great venue. It's a wonderful venue, and the through Mr. Benson and the cooperative people he deals with, SMG and all those people, they've done a wonderful job at keeping it state of the art.
Right. Well, and the state of Louisiana. I mean, the taxpayers have done a great job in keeping it up. And honestly, I got to be honest with you. we're going to have to continue to do it. We're going to have to continue to modernize that building to be able to attract these major events. And I think that's going to be something that obviously we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do that going forward. Sure. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE TV, 6 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Friday nights, 10 p.m. on WLAE TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Our guest tonight, Ro Brown, legendary sportscaster, WBOK Radio, and of course also Jim Miller of JW Sports. JW Miller Sports, also former executive with the New Orleans Saints. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll switch gears. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the college game. We'll talk about the Pelicans as well. My name is Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. 866-3200 is the phone number if you'd like to get involved. Ro Brown and Jim Miller are our guests tonight. And guys, let's shift gears to the college game. We'll talk specifically about baseball. And let's talk first about Rick Jones. Rick Jones is now retired from Tulane. Joe Brokoff did a nice job at Tulane, kind of setting up that program. Rick took it to heights that again, I don't think anybody, if part of the Tulane family, thought that he could. He is retired now. Your thoughts on Rick Jones?
Yeah, I've run into a lot of people who didn't like Rick. I always liked him.
I always liked him.
I did. I know that he could be kind of wound tight sometimes, but I just never had a bad experience with Rick Jones. I did not. Me personally. He came in, as you said, Tulane's baseball program wasn't at rock bottom by any means under Joe Brokoff.
Oh, no doubt.
Not at all. They were very good. I mean, they knocked off some good Florida State teams in the Metro Conference days in the tournament. And Rick Jones comes in, and as you said, he took it to another level. Look at the stadium there. That's there because of him. The 2 College World Series, appearances. That's definitely taking it to another level. I thought he did a tremendous job there.
Yes.
I thought he did a really good job. I mean, it's under sometimes circumstances, as you said, with the lack of scholarships you got to deal with, and the amount of money it costs to go to Tulane.
Inability to use tops.
And, it's the draft. You get a good class and they're gone and it can be wiped out, which a number of the top programs have to deal with. But Rick did a really good job at Tulane. I think he really ought to be proud of what he did there. And I enjoyed working with him through the years. I really did. Yes. I thought I had a good relationship with him.
Jim, what can you add about Rick Jones?
I can echo everything that Rose says, but as an opponent, we take some pretty good UNO teams into Tulane and vice versa. Had a great competition when Tom Walter was our head coach. But you don't have to like somebody to respect them. And just what Rick had done over the years, he and Rick Dixon with the whole program. But Rick did a wonderful job, and I think he's to be complimented, and he's to be given a gold watch on his retirement.
Right. With all the hurdles they have to overcome at Tulane, as you mentioned, Ro. I mean, what is it, $60,000 a year?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, man. Okay.
Somewhere around there.
The inability to use tops. 11.7 scholarships a year for baseball. The new coach that's going to go there. What can he rebuild that program? Can he build it back to where Rick had it?
Well, I guess Rick did it under those circumstances. So I guess it could be done. It can be done. It's not like when Rick arrived that LSU wasn't at its status where they are now. So I mean, he did it even within that. UNO was still good at the time, good program at the time. So I guess it can be done. A lot of it's timing. Some of it's probably luck. And they can't get a lot of junior college people.
Right.
They live off transfers. If you think about some of those College World Series teams, they had some pretty important transfers on that team. And, that may be, part of the way they'll have to go. But, yeah, it can be done again. I think, you got the facility, and, yeah, I think it can be done.
Jim?
It's going to be very difficult because if you look around at the schools that are considered high academic institutions, Tulane, Vanderbilt, Stanford, those are schools that have been able to maintain wonderful baseball programs, but it's not easy, and it's going to get more difficult as we've talked about. I feel right now for some of the recruits that Rick recruited, my next door neighbor is one, a great little pitcher. And not little, but a good pitcher, and he's wondering who the new coach is going to be. But it's going to be very difficult. But can they do it? Tulane has shown great resiliency. With the great the baseball facility they have, the Ullman Stadium coming out, everybody's excited about that. Tulane's got great resiliency, and whoever is blessed enough to get that job will I think be able to bring it back.
Let's talk about the University of New Orleans. Both you guys obviously intimately involved with that program. Ro, you're still there. Jim, you were athletic director. Jim, we'll start with you. What's the future of UNO athletics? Where do you think UNO can go from obviously in the aftermath of Katrina going forward?
UNO is going to have to do one thing that we pushed and pushed and pushed and never could get done, and that's changing the funding and the support model. Because UNO's athletics is supported primarily by student fees, which means if you've got $17,500, which we had before Katrina, at $100 a semester, that's a heck of a lot better than $8,500 or $9,000 enrollment today. So you've got a tremendous drop in your support. So they've got to be able to tap some other means of support. It's not going to be easy. Every department in the university is wanting. I mean, every department in the university has the same issue, lack of funding. It's going to be a very, very difficult road, a very hard road, unless they make some tough decisions. And I know they are. They're good people. I've met with them. I've talked to them. But it's going to be a very, very difficult road home.
Right. With this administration in Baton Rouge continually cutting higher education, every time we turn around, putting the onus really on a lot of the kids and the parents that are going to these public universities, raising tuition, et cetera. Even with TOPS, it's a difficult situation. Ro, you work there. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think about UN athletics, where it is now and where it can be?
It's almost like starting from scratch, quite frankly. I mean, Dr. Peter Foss came in, he wanted Division I athletics, and I think that was good. It needed to be a Division I. If you're going to have it, do it at Division I. As Jim said, I mean, Jim, he would know a lot better than I, but I can tell you, yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult. It doesn't mean that it can't be done. Got good people there. I think it's huge that Ron Maestri came back. Ron Maestri was, once again, used the phrase ahead of the curve. UNO was ahead of the curve in college baseball. He knows how to build a baseball program. Even, having been out of it for almost 20 years. He has contacts, all over the country. He works hard even at his age. And, I think that he can get that done. Coach Schlesinger, Mark Schlesinger, he comes in third year, is doing a good job
Heck
there.
Of a coach,
it's difficult, yeah. He's doing a good job there under circumstances that can be difficult. You got to get, one or two breakthrough players. One of the reasons why I, felt, kind of good about going to work at UNO is because I think UNO is important. You got to have UNO here. I think it fell off the face of the earth, and I think a lot of it was its own doing. I think athletics can be something that can, as you guys know, that can, put it back on the face of the earth. And I'm talking about just locally, I mean, you've got to let people know that you can get a quality education by getting on the Franklin or Elysian Fields buses.
Yes.
That you don't have to go, 200, 300 miles away. You can play Division I basketball and baseball and not have to leave. And I think that those are the things that we really had to get people to understand and realize. It is important that this public university is here. Because a lot of our universities in this town, they're not public universities. It's important that it is here, and it's important that it thrive. And one of the ways that it can thrive, it can help it thrive, is through a solid athletic department.
Right.
And that's That's kind of plain.
100% agreement. When I was at UNO, I wistfully looked at Lafayette many times because you know, their athletics were no better than ours, but it's the only game in town. And of course this year, look at it, you know, #1 in baseball, their softball team is great, their NCAA basketball. I mean, they are on a roll right now.
But Jim, not to interrupt you, they're in a different place now because
that's oil money.
That's oil money. Oh yeah, that's right. No, their facilities will rival SEC facilities.
Correct.
And none of that money's coming to the state of Louisiana. That's all private oil money that's building those facilities, and now they can compete with an LSU. They can compete with SEC teams, and it's no longer, well, I'm going to go to LSU or maybe Tulane. Now people are thinking, man, if I don't go to LSU, I can always go to ULL. I got the same type of facilities they got at LSU, and I'm going to be able to play.
No question. But also, UNO is in a very difficult position athletically here because, you know, the first dollar out of here goes to the Saints. The second dollar goes to the Pelicans. You know, the third dollar, LSU can come in and get anything they want. Tulane probably is then you've got UNO scrambling down there, and it's a very, very difficult job. It's very difficult to talk to the sports fans or induce the sports fans to come to UNO for a game, you know, when they've got so many options here.
More options than when they were in their heyday.
Options that weren't around in the 70s and 80s.
Exactly. When Main Street was bringing them to the World Series and when Tim Floyd was bringing them to the NCAAs. Much more options. And even then it was tough to get people out there, you know, because again, it's such a commuter school. Both you guys agree it can turn around, but it's going to be difficult?
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. It's going to be difficult, you know, but it can be done. And when people think when I say turn around, I mean I'm not necessarily thinking that it'll be, you know, an athlete. There's no football, so it's going to be not going to be like an LSU or whatever. But it can be still a solid athletic program that assists in keeping the university strong.
You like the conference changes?
I was just going to say the best thing they did was the Southland Conference. The Southland Conference is a great matchup because you've got schools now that don't have the oil money, don't have the Lafayette building program. They can compete with the Nichols. They can compete with Southeast McNeese. They can compete with those schools, I think, because New Orleans still has a cachet. You know, when you recruit athletes that get a chance to go to LSU. Well, then you're looking at the second tier. Well, maybe you'll miss out the guys that can go to Lafayette. But the players that you're left with, and I'm not throwing rocks again at these young men and women. There's still a cachet. You're going to New Orleans. This is a great place to be. It's a great place to get an education. But it's a great place to be a student athlete.
And sometimes, I mean, just as working as a sports journalist around here for all these years, and now working at UNO, a lot of the problem is sometimes as far as individual athletes are concerned, especially local athletes. We're in a generation, I think, of kids who are not as good as they think they are. You know what I mean? I don't have any other way of putting it.
Byproduct of the AU?
Yeah, they're not as good as they think they are. They're good, and you know they would do very well at a UNO, you know, or at a McNeese, or whatever, you know, or at a Central Arkansas. They would do very well at those places, develop at those places. You know, Scottie Pippen went to Central Arkansas, man. You know what I mean? It's
one of the 50 greatest of all time.
Think, and a lot of kids, you know, they think that, you know, you either have to leave in order to be big time, in order to be seen or get exposure. But if you can play, you know, they're going to find you. They're going to find you, and they don't. You know, it's a generation of young athletes that don't.
And it's
think
a different world now because where kids used to say, "I'm going to LSU, I'm going to Tulane, I'm going to UNO." Now kids want to get out of state. You know, now they want to go to the Alabamas, they want to go to Auburn, they want to go to Georgia or Georgia Tech, or maybe they want to head up north and maybe try something. You know, they've never seen snow before, and they're going to head up north and deal with that. So again, with the internet and Twitter and everything else that we've got now, the kids are they're not tuned into saying, I'm going to stay home and go to school now. They're more interested in maybe getting out and into the world, and quite frankly, it hurts. It hurts the local schools.
It hurts the local schools, and sometimes it hurts the kids because, as I said, they're not as good as they think they are.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a great point, Eric, because this country is so small now.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is so small now.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no way out there on the West Coast.
Right.
I mean, it's take a flight, get out there, because we can see what's going on the web.
Yeah.
Right, and everybody's on TV now too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's not like, if you're playing on the West Coast, nobody's ever going to see you at home. They're going to see the Pac-10. They're going to see the WAC. So they're going to be able to see those games as well. Let's shift gears and talk a little Pelicans. Pelicans don't have a pick in the draft this year. There's some talk about maybe the Pelicans buying their way back in the draft. Also some talk maybe Pierre Jackson may be moved. Last year's second-round pick that came in a trade from the 76ers for a pick. Ro, I'll start with you first. What do you think the most pressing need is for this team going into this offseason?
Oh, you heard Jim talk about playmakers. I think even more than the National Football League, in the NBA, you have to have players. People who can just outright play. You can talk all the Greg Popovich you want, okay? Or Phil Jackson that you want.
Good players make good
NBA,
coaches, right?
You have got to have players.
Yes.
You've got to have players. And I just don't think the Pelicans had enough players last year. They may have, but many of them were injured. They almost ended up playing with almost a D-League team.
Yes.
In some respects.
At the end, for sure.
Right.
They really did. Nothing against those guys, and they played hard. And they beat some people that they probably shouldn't have beaten. But I think, wow. I think if everybody's healthy. Yeah, they're better than they were last year because, there was no Ryan Anderson. And, I mean, he was putting down 20 a game, and all of a sudden he's gone. And then Holiday is gone. And, Anthony Davis, played most of the year. Right. And it's just, Eric Gordon played more than he had played. But still, I just think that they have to get, in that league, you just got to get people who can outright play.
Three,
and
a five?
I don't think they have enough of those people. Definitely a three. They need some kind of three.
You think the three is
to me, they need somebody a three. If you had to pick one, if I had to pick one spot, that's what I would pick.
Right. They got the mid-level exception that they can use. They don't have a lot of money left. They got $7 million and the mid-level exception.
Not a whole lot they can do. To tell you the truth,
not a lot.
Not a whole lot they can do. I do want to say that Anthony Davis is, he's better than I thought he would be.
Right.
Sooner.
Up to 235 right now, from what we
understand. Sooner than I thought. I always thought he'd be good, but the year that he had this year, his second year, he was way ahead of things to me, in my mind.
Well, I would agree.
I thought he was tremendous this year. Didn't make first, second, or third All-NBA. I think he should have been on one of those.
Well, at least on the defensive team as well that he didn't make, which again to me was shocking.
And I understand why he didn't. That's how this thing works.
There's a stepping stone.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that, but he was of that caliber, no doubt about it.
Jim, what can you add? What do you think about the Pelicans? Well, what do you think about their needs? And again, as I mentioned, only $7 million that they can spend this year, and they can use that mid-level exception, but not a lot of money. Not a lot of money to play with.
I would keep Pierre Jackson, number one. If anybody looked at what he did in the D-League, I mean, averaged 30 points and scored 58 one game, something like that. I mean, this kid is a player. I mean, he could be our playmaker. But you definitely need a small forward. There's no question they need a small forward. They need a center. They need somebody that can come in. But I've never seen such a black cat season when you've got with injury.
Yes,
it was
they had a snake bit season. They had a lot of injuries. And hopefully they won't have that many, but still, again, that's where you look at your depth. Their depth wasn't very good.
Right.
So yeah, they've got a lot of holes. They need to get rid of Eric Gordon. That's
my next question.
They need to get rid of Eric Gordon. They've got a contract for at least one more year that is it's a death knell.
Right.
But they've got to make some decisions on him because he could be a cancer.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's already said. John Reed had him an interview with him a few weeks ago, in which he said that, again, he was brought in to set the tone and lead, and really had no interest in being the sixth man on this team.
Right.
He hasn't led. He hasn't set the tone. So, so.
He hasn't stayed healthy.
No. And so, I mean, bottom line is, in the NBA, you have to do what the coach says ultimately.
Right.
I guess you can sulk. The problem is $30 million over 2 years. The only way that the Pelicans get to move him is if he renounces that last year, which is an option year, which would make it a palatable $15 million to be able to move him. What do you think, Rode? I mean, I think they're going to try to move him. Ultimately, I don't know if they can move him.
I'm not that well versed in the NBA economics, but they got to get rid of him somehow. I'm not sure that they can, but they got to get rid of him somehow. I don't know. I can't tell you how, but they do. There's just no question.
Right.
Well, Eric hit the nail on the head. He's got to renounce that last year. He's got to work with the team to get out of Dodge.
Right.
And I don't know if he's willing to do that.
Well, not many people are going to walk away for $15 million, but if he truly wants to get out of here, then ultimately he gets the 1 year, then he can become a free agent, or again, he gets to sign that long-term deal that he can maybe trump that last year, that $15 million. The question is, again, I don't think anyone is going to take him at 2 years and $30 million right now.
No,
I think that's going to be difficult, and he's going to have to work with the team if he wants to get. If he truly wants to get out of here, he's going to have to work with the team.
Yeah, there are a lot of teams out there that have Eric Gordons, and there's a lot of general managers that aren't going to buy another one.
Right.
So that's going to it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma. Everybody's got an Eric Gordon.
Yes.
Not everybody, but a lot of them. The two playing tonight don't have an Eric Gordon.
Which is part of the reason they're playing tonight.
Exactly.
Right?
Which again, you guys are really good at this. Great segue.
Ro's legendary. That's right. He's done this
San Antonio
before.
versus Miami. Who do you have, and how many games and why?
Wow. I love both of these teams. Let me start off by saying that I am a LeBron James fan. A lot of people don't like LeBron James for whatever reasons they have, And the reason why I am a LeBron James fan, think about it. He is one of those phenoms who has turned out to be everything we thought he might be.
Yes.
That doesn't always
pan out.
We've had Sebastian Telfair on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and we've had he has turned out to be everything that we thought he would be. He's only 30, so there's still time, but there's been no police blotter.
Right.
There's been no scandal. There's been, he has won his 2 championships, his 3 or 4 times in the finals. He is a terrific player. He really is. He is a terrific player. And I think he's the difference. Maybe San Antonio may be a better team, but I think that Miami is a team where if the best player in the league gets enough help, they can win.
So Miami in?
I think Miami. I think it's going to go 7.
Miami in 7.
I think it's going to go
Jim,
7.
I got a minute.
I think they can win on the road.
I'm a sentimental San Antonio guy, but if you look at San Antonio, this is their last hurrah because you've got Duncan, you've got Ginobili, you've got Parker, all of them with 12 to 14 years in the league. They're not going to be around much longer, and they've got to do it this year. I'm thinking they will. They understand. I don't disagree with anything Rose said about LeBron. He's a wonderful, wonderful athlete and great representative of the NBA. But I
nobody
think
ever gives him credit for that.
No,
exactly.
that's the truth. That is the truth. Especially since the decision.
Right. San Antonio in 7.
San Antonio in 7.
Yeah.
I love watching San Antonio. They're beautiful.
Well, I thought last year they had the recipe for success against LeBron. Make him shoot outside. Don't allow him to drive. They'll set that picket fence up again. I like Boris Diaw. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a difference maker in this series because of his size, his ability to shoot. I like San Antonio in 7, but I do think it's going to be a great series.
Absolutely.
I really do. I'm looking forward to it. And tell you what, again, to me, the 2 best teams made it to the finals. I don't think there's any doubt.
Right.
And ultimately, again, we'll see what happens down the line. Guys, thanks so much for being with us. It's been a very spirited conversation. It's all done.
Are we done?
Yep, that quick.
Holy cow. You told me it was an hour.
It flies. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. Ro Brown, WBOK Sports Director, and of course, Jim Miller, former Saints Executive Vice President, and jwmillersports.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night at 10 o'clock here on WLAE TV, and also on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. You can also catch me on the radios weekdays, 9:90 a.m. WGSO, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric_Asher. If you missed any of the previous programs here on WLAE, you can check those out at ericasher.com. And you can also download my podcast or listen live to my radio show at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to our guests, Ro Brown and Jim Miller. Also would like to thank the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my producer, director, William Hill. For Ro Brown, for Jim Miller, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll see you right back here next week on WLAE TV and, of course, Pelican Sports Television for Inside New Orleans Sports. Good evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.